Welcome, everybody. I'm Joel High. I'm the president of the Guild of Music Supervisors, longtime music supervisor, and super excited about this panel today. This is one that I've been really waiting for a while. I have dipped my toes into the games world and am always astounded by what comes out, I guess. But this is where the cutting edge of what we do as a craft is really being cut. This is the one media, you talk about a film, you finish it and it's done. You talk about a TV show, you finish it and it's done. Games have the possibility of changing and evolving, and the rules are still being written as we speak. So this panel has the cutting edge of the cutting edge. With Steve Schnur from EA Music. He is going to be moderating. He's also our sponsor today. EA has been a great sponsor for the Guild for years, and we really, really appreciate them working with us on a long-time basis. So I'm going to kick it off to him in just a second. A couple of clearing items for you guys. Just know that we have new board elections are coming up very soon. We're going to be announcing the slate of potential board members soon. So be ready to look for that. And 4 seats are open. We've got a lot of people who are incumbents who are looking to come back. These will be a lot more pleasant than other elections. Amanda Creed Thomas, who's been a board member for a long time, really energetic and helpful, especially in membership, is stepping down this year. So at least one of the seats will be open. So keep your eyes peeled for that. I want to also say that, we've got our awards are going to be coming up in April 11th precisely, and we should have actually a really big announcement very soon coming up next week. So keep your eyes peeled for that. And please, everybody, submit your projects for the awards. You need to nominate yourself for all the different categories, from games to trailers to ads to film and television and documentaries. Please submit your projects from the previous year so that we can evaluate and get you guys nominated for a Soupy. I'd like to also say we have an amazing workshop coming up on Tuesday with the DEI committee. So please do attend that if you're a member. This is a really important thing that we've set up, and it's really a value add for our members. This is a really incredible workshop we're going to be doing, so please do sign up for that. And before I take it off to Steve, I want to say we're all deeply moved by the passing of Cheryl Tiano, who was very important in this community and specifically worked a lot in the world of games as an agent for composers. And so we're really sad about her passing, and kind of honor her as really a friend and somebody who was really important to this community. So with that, I'd like to kick it off to Steve Schnur. Again, he is the head of EA Music and is also sponsoring this panel. And so I'm going to kick it off to you, Steve. So take it away.
Thank you, my friend. There's a crazy background noise there. Before we start, I just want to continue what you just said about Cheryl. Cheryl Tiano was a great agent. She represented composers like no other. She genuinely and deeply cared about evolving their careers. She was a visionary because Cheryl decided a couple of years ago that she was going to go out on a limb and really spend a lot of time in the game community and find out what it's about, learn a lot about it, and then help composers evolve and build careers in that community as well. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time here other than I'd just like to take a brief moment of silence for her. She was a dear close friend of mine, and I know a dear close friend of many of yours. So with your permission, if we could just take a few seconds. Thank you. Anyway, thank you for doing that. Hi, everyone. I'm here with an incredible group of people to talk. We're not going to be doing Music Supervision 101 today. I think the title of this panel sort of suggested that we're not going to be doing that. We're not here to be talking about, how do I get my song in a video game, any of that stuff. I think we're beyond that with this group, because this is a very prestigious group, all of you, 135 it looks like of you at this point. The people in the panel, who I will have introduce themselves one at a time and what they do briefly, they represent some of the greatest music supervisors, visionaries, producers, curators, creators, and business people there are amongst us in our community. To be an interactive media music curator, you have to have a genuine entrepreneurial spirit. You see, we're a team-based business, team-based productions, but individually, to be a music supervisor, a music curator, you have to be bold with vision and ideas. As examples, over the years, FIFA 21 this year is one of decades worth of curated games that has created a culture, an expectation of gamers around the world. When you look at scores, you look at Call of Duty, Red Dead Redemption, these scores have such meaning to people around the world. It's not simply underscore. They stand out above and beyond it all. They can live on their own. No matter what decade you were, where music, you discovered music, whether it was the decade of Zeppelin, U2, Nirvana, Eminem, no matter what it was, we all found those moments of discovery to be glorious moments. And these moments now come from video games. If you remember, for 80s, 90s, people would have a K-Rock t-shirt, or a decade before they have a KMET sticker on their car, bumper sticker on the car. That's not happening anymore. Now your identity, your self-identity comes to what games you play, and that's the community you live in. We're also going to talk today about the world of platforms, because it's not just about individual games. We have to look at the platforms that have emerged, Twitch, the consoles themselves, Xbox, Sony, now coming out with their next gen at any minute. Roblox, we'll be talking about that incredible platform. If you have kids, you know where they're spending their time, it's on Roblox. And even Fortnite now, I believe, is considering themselves a platform more than a game. So, a few more things before we get into the discussion. Games, we don't follow trends. We don't create culture. Interactive media is culture now. And nonlinear entertainment is really leading the way around the world. And I think if you see the experimentation of film and television, maybe even music, where they're looking at a matter of player, listener, viewer choice, I think those expectations are going to be considerably important going forward. To be a supervisor, curator in our world, we don't just randomly find 40 bands that we think are cool and put them in FIFA or Madden or other games. We don't just cast any composer. The real estate has some significant responsibility to it, because this carries with people. As the cliche goes, if I had a dime for every time somebody came up to me and said, oh my God, NHL 2009, this band, that band, oh my God, FIFA 2015, this band, that band. I mean, they stop talking about the gameplay or the functionality for years ahead. But they continue to talk about the bands. They continue to talk about the score. I have people still talking to me about Gordy Hobbs' score from Battlefront 1. That was 6 years ago. Still talking about it. It's as important to that person as Star Wars, John Williams' Star Wars, was to me. So I want everybody to realize it transcends beyond the project. It transcends beyond the year when somebody gets into it. So it has responsibility, and it affects people's lives because it becomes a major part of people's lives. So I just want to briefly show you some numbers, and then we can get into the discussion. So bear with me here. I just thought this would be kind of cool for us to look at. Let's see, I believe this is the right one. Maybe I'm going to mess this up, I'm not sure. There we go. Yeah. So who we are. So there are, in the US, now I know we're sick of numbers right now, that's all we're hearing on television for the last couple of days are numbers and numbers and numbers, but there's 214 plus million players in the US. Think about the population of the US. 75% of US households have at least one game player in their household. 214 plus million players, 51 plus million percent are 70% of kids under 18, 51 million of them. And 64% of adults 18 and older, 163 million. So I think we have a tendency at times to think it's a bunch of kids playing games. But if you end up looking at the numbers, it shows you that it's pretty diverse. And why do we play? Well, we play because it's about community, right? It's about 65% of those that play with other people. So this isn't a standalone activity. It's a deeply important integrative part of some of our lives. So that's just to sort of kick off a conversation and to let everybody know how much games are and interactive entertainment is to people's lifeblood, defining who they are, what they do, how they do it, when they do it, and why they do it. I'm going to briefly introduce, or let them introduce, the folks on this panel, and just give me a minute or two on what you do and why you do it, and et cetera, and then we'll move on to a discussion. So I'll start with Rafi Lima. Maybe many of you know her, but Rafi, can you sort of just chime in and say hi and what you do and why you do it?
Cool. I'm Rafi. I work with Steve over at EA, doing music supervision, marketing, partnerships, really looking at the world that we have and figuring out how to work with music beyond just licensing a song in a game.
Rafi has a really bad camera, so bear with everybody. We've been everybody. We've been dealing with this for weeks. I know what to get her for Christmas. Brandon. Hi, Brandon. Are you there?
Yeah. Hey, everyone. I'm Brandon Young. I am the head of music at Activision Games. I've been doing this at Activision almost as long as Steve and Rafi have been doing this at EA. It's been about 17 years now.
No.
So between us, we've seen a lot happen in this industry over the past 17 years. It's been a really fun place to be. And kind of like what Steve was saying just a few minutes ago about, people talking about their FIFA soundtrack from 2009 or whatever. I get that too. We just re-released our Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2 game, and we put all the original music from the first two games in addition to, new modern things to sort of round it out and modernize it. But it's always really fun to see the online talk about the original soundtracks and how passionate people were about the songs that were released in some of those early titles. So it was pretty cool. So I was happy we did that.
I think it's great. Joel sort of alluded to that, Brandon, right? But, Tony Hawk was one of the games that started it all. We have to give credit where credit is due. And all these years later, to see the cultural impact that game not only had, but continues to have 20 plus years later.
Yeah, we're real happy with this release. I'll let everybody finish introducing, and then we can dig in.
I'm gonna get into it. Hey, John, are you there?
I am here. Hello, from Nashville. So nice to meet everyone. I'm John V with a fuzzy camera, it seems as well. So I look after music at, there we go. I look after music at Roblox. So Roblox is a platform for those of you with small people under the age of 18. It's a UGC platform as YouTube is to video. Roblox is to gaming. So we are not one game or one experience, but we are kind of millions of games. So in each of those game creators are their own kind of music supervisors, if you like. And I suppose if I'm the music supervisor behind the music supervisor as I'm coming into your world. So first of all, it's great to be with the guild. I nearly went into your world a long time ago. I left the music industry and nearly took a job at Miramax in a junior music supervision role in the late 90s. So it's nice to be coming full circle. So we look to empower all our community with music. So we'll get into it more in the panel, but excited to join the conversation.
Excited to have you here, and obviously for those that know me, excited that John decided to move to Nashville from Northern California. I have another person with great ears and very smart person to hang out with. So this is the group. I just mentioned before this about the real estate, the responsibility of the real estate. We can define real estate separately, right? We can define it as Call of Duty, we can define it as Roblox, whatever the case may be. But when it comes to the way the world discovers new music, is there any other real estate that can currently match the reach or the impact of video games? What do you guys think?
TikTok.
There you
I'm
go.
gonna give it to them. TikTok.
Talk to me.
Yeah, I think the distinction is that, so I call them the rubbernecking platforms, right? Because everything moves so quickly. So I think the leg up that we all have maybe on the panel is the amount of time that the kids or the people are engaging with the music. It's immersive, it's interactive, and the video channels, it's like moving by at 1 million miles an hour. So it's hard to engage the little bits and bytes, but on Roblox, people are playing for hours and hours. I'm sure Tony Hawk and Call of Duty and all the games, the hours, I'm sure average game playing for a packaged game is what, Steve and Brandon, 30 hours, right, to finish a game or something. So so I think maybe pure reach, we're equal, but I think immersion and interactivity and how the music can kind of seep into the brain, I think we still win.
That that does come down for years and years when radio was responsible for music discovery and for selling music in those days, which I believe are behind us. It was about the repetitiveness, right? You see a film once, twice, 3 times. You see a television show once, twice, 3 times. But music, you would have to hear hundreds of times, and the repetitiveness. Radio station program directors that I was friendly with would tell me that it took about 130 or 150 times of repetitive listening of one song for somebody to say that they've acknowledged the fact that they've heard it. So can you imagine hours and hours and hours and days and months playing a game, and the repetitiveness of a song and why it becomes so important to someone? So yeah, I do think we win because of that.
And we also win because of the amount of music, right? I say TikTok because obviously it's such a music platform, breaking music now and sort of with what's doing, and there's so much of that music out there. When you're looking at any of our games, to your point, you're going to have those collective and all those hours in there, but it's going to be maybe 50 songs rotating, right? And max on a really high volume game, 100 tracks, and you're gonna get a lot more of that burn in your mind and in your head than you would have in just flipping through a TikTok at that point.
For sure.
There's also so just to further that point, listening to songs that many times can also get annoying. So we actually, when we're building a game that's going to be licensed music heavy, we actually all sit with it. We sit with that music, and if we feel like it's something that we've gotten sick of in a short amount of time, it usually gets cut. So it's just something we try and think further for the end user on that level.
That's a really smart thing to do. Yeah, because the burn on music in a game can take a matter of weeks, and somebody plays a game for a matter of, sometimes a year plus.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, Rafi, so live music, fan attended, sports events, movie theaters, etc., they may not return for quite some time now. It's looking, if we were looking at the Travis Scott Fortnite numbers as a jumping off point, what are the possibilities or opportunities for virtual music events and destinations within games? In other words, how far are we away, in your and everybody else in the panel's opinion, from a virtual Super Bowl or a virtual Coachella or a virtual Burning Man? I mean, where are we going with this platform, and what are the opportunities ahead?
Rafi, he asked you. You go first, then I obviously.
It's okay.
Go for it.
Go for it.
So yeah, I mean, somewhat drinking the Kool-Aid. I mean, I think it's all coming, and I can't say too much, but it may be coming very soon. So watch this space in maybe the next week.
I was gonna say it's here, man.
Well, it's
really
here now.
Right?
I think in terms of it becoming more quote unquote mainstream, or like having more things to choose from. So I think that we use internally at the company the Burning Man reference with the plier, right? So in theory, the infinite plier is there, and maybe it's like Burning Man 97, right? It's early. There's a few little camps on there in terms of like entertainment experiences, but we're looking forward to an infinite plier where every possible music brand that you associate with, whether it's a small club, your small club in Des Moines, or it's Wembley Stadium, or it's the whatever the Fox in Oakland, or it's the EDM EDC festival, whatever it happens to be, or an artist you want to connect with, or it's an artist tour that you want to go on. So I think all of these are going to go virtual, and I don't think, again, it's an either or. So if you think about how a tour gets set up, usually it's around single 1, single 2, announce the tour, and then you sell tickets and you do 18 months of touring. So I think the virtual preamble, you could start with a virtual tour that actually kicks off the ticket sales to the physical tour, and then if you attended the virtual kickoff, you get some things physically at the event that you would only get if you were there for the virtual one. And then after the physical one, you get other things for the post show. And so it doesn't have to be, again, limited by geography. Chris Martin, my countryman, doesn't want to tour again in general for reasons of, reducing his carbon footprint. So I think touring in general is a lot of work to reach 2 million people. And as Rafi was implying, like you can reach 2 million people on our platform, other platforms, in the games in a weekend. So it's going to be interesting intertwining the experiences, and I think the fan hopefully should win, and music should win, right? Because there'll be more different ways to interweave the experiences and connect fans, with music in new and fun ways.
That's really what I'm excited about, and that's what I'm seeing it being already here, right? Because the desire and the intent has been there, and then you had sort of the technology, or do we want to embrace this and put this to place? And then 2020 happened, and we were all put in the position of having to sort of figure some things out. And then artists had to step up and figure it out. And technology had to sort of, okay, let's go figure out these holes. And sort of everybody started to understand and see the picture in a much better way. And I love how, to your point, like I think there's going to be a sort of a place and a time for everyone where you have that virtual component, and you're going to have it deliver on that new generation of our kids who really are about that. I'm immersed, I'm a part of this, let's go. And then you also have the other side of it, which I really loved how Tomorrowland executed their festival this year, because they really created this digital platform and a one place to go, right, where it was the hub in which all these concerts and these things were still happening in a live here format. So I'm going into this digital space, but I'm clicking into this stage, and as I click in, whatever was designed around it, now it starts to merge in with that stage setting and that experience. And I'm seeing the guys like DJ, so I'm here and I'm vibing it in a much more because that's me, that's how I want to experience music. I very much loved what Versus did throughout COVID. That was probably one of my favorite executions of having that more personal, wow, I'm sitting here hearing, listening to Erykah Badu and all of a sudden jamming with Snoop Dogg and then sort of everyone in between. I loved that. So I think that this year sort of empowered everybody and then pushed whoever wasn't ready to go to just be like, go figure this shit out, right? Like, it's here. So, and that's why I'm saying like it's here. And now it's like, what are we doing with this? Which is super exciting because some barriers came down and we have some other shit to figure out, licensing and all of this stuff that always come into play on how we're all going to come to and have a party. But it's
I think you just made you just said, what are we doing with this? And that's like a key question, right? Because ever since this Travis Scott Fortnite in-game experience, it's all anyone's wanted to talk about. I'm sure most of the people on this, if not all of you, have had every label and artist and manager around reaching out saying, how can we do this with you? How can we do something like this with you? And we put a lot of time into thinking about it. We do want to figure out how to do these things in the right way, right? Once it's been done, or once it's been done poorly, then it's really hard to keep people's attention. So you want to make sure you're doing it correctly and executing it correctly. And then you also, for games like we put out, like Call of Duty, you have to wonder if our user, if our player is going to want to stop in the middle of sort of like battle and action to go immerse himself in a virtual concert. I mean, it's hard to say. Some might, some may not. And it's one of those, you want it to come out and be done well, and you want to get the right reaction. So we just kind of weighed these different thoughts around it, right? It is cool that Fortnite did what they did, and that it did get the notoriety that it did. People that don't even play Fortnite or know much about games are aware of that, which is cool.
Yeah,
I think it's definitely a for them.
I think the example that we give, like, you're right, in a game. So we give the example internally, like if you're at Disneyland or something with the kids, and like in the evening an artist performs around the fireworks, right? You're there to go to Disneyland and have your experience, and then it's like, oh, there's a performance, and then it happens for 10 minutes, and then you kind of move on and go and do what you're doing. It's for some people it's extra. For some people, to your point, in Call of Duty, you're trying to not get killed or do your thing, and it's like it's breaking the vibe.
Yeah, exactly.
But what I think is interesting from a guild, because I haven't hung with you guys as the music supervisors, I think the opportunity, looking at the little crystal ball we have, at least internally, is, now as everyone's thinking about where the media is being consumed, and it's the buckets of television and film, and we're talking about games in general, maybe package games. I think when you look at the platform opportunity, I'm looking at kind of TV experiences that could happen interactively on Roblox, music experiences. We're looking at sports, so and we're immediately a global audience. So right now is absolutely ground zero, where the people who our Roblox guild of music supervisors, right, are all the kids who are programming all the games, but they're not professionals. So I think having a bridge to either coach these young kids who are hyper creative to go, what is music supervision? How do we get into it? Like, what are we doing? Or like, work together. But I guarantee in the next, 2 or 3 years, there's going to be a hit like TV show. There'll be movies on the platform, like music festivals, and all these experiences need better and better kind of music thought going into them. So I think it's a great time to bridge, but we're literally like ground zero. So it's super interesting timing for this kind of discussion.
Yeah, and I think given our state of the world, I think we can all agree that it's moving forward. It's going to be really cool to be able to experience things virtually like that from your home or whatever. I guess back to my previous point, it's just as long as if it's for an in-game, if it's an in-game execution, I just think it has to fit with that right game.
It has to make sense. It has to make sense.
Well, yeah. The beauty of our space, and I'm really proud of this, is that it's not we never, for years I've been in this space, Brandon, you as well, Rafi as well. I mean, we don't do cut and paste events. We don't see something that someone else does and do it ourselves. We're constantly evolving. Joel alluded to this when we started. We're constantly evolving, we're constantly growing. We're not trying to beat each other. What we're trying to do is come up with creative, unique ideas, because I think that's the expectations of gamers around the world. You know, I get those same calls, Brandon, you know, hey, when are you guys going to do a Fortnite type of event? And the truth is that, well, we really don't have that type of real estate. No one's going to play, you know, Call of Duty for you or Madden football for us and suddenly stop and congregate 50, 60 million people. That's not the nature of the platform of that project. You know, Rafi, I'll let you get into this in a moment. I'm really proud of the fact that she launched FIFA 21 this year, you know, with 46 bands playing in a 24-hour period and aggregated in one place. But I mean, that was an event. It celebrated the sport. But I think people expect us sometimes to suddenly have 50, 60 million people stop playing Madden football and have a halftime show. And that's just absolutely unrealistic, because I don't think gamers want to, as you said about Call of Duty before, suddenly stop synchronistically and watch somebody play. That doesn't mean that we're constantly going to be innovative and grow and build upon unique ideas, especially with, you know, the platforms we have. You know, John is creating an incredible platform, you know, and like I had mentioned previously, I think Fortnite is becoming a platform. But Rafi, do you want to just briefly talk about
on Fortnite, but not even on Fortnite, right? Like they've had two really massive when it came to the numbers, like from an events perspective with Marshmallow and then Travis Scott, but you know, you're not really seeing the numbers, or it's not the same level of numbers when they've done everything else that they've done now with whoever followed, right, and gone into Battle Royale. And so the impact is simply not the same. Like, and we've talked about that, you know, when we did Battlefield with Seven Nation Army, and it's become the most viewed, you know, video game trailer of all times still. When we were thinking back, it's like, wow, it's a song everybody knows, but it was the way it was treated and the place in which it was, you know, put together. Like, it made this song that belonged to everybody already special and resurfaced the song in a way, you know, to a huge copyright, went up 200-300% for weeks following that. So there was like this really huge impact in how it was done in a meaningful way, right? Brandon, going back to what you were saying, like, you can't just like slap some crazy idea and make it happen in Call of Duty. It doesn't work. Like, those guys are there to shoot shit up. They don't care about listening to a band right now. We deal with the same, you know, in other settings. And, but then you find it's how creative do you get to find a way in which people are paying attention or consuming it, or, you know, FIFA, not even the festival, but FIFA is another example where in the last 5 years, we have been given space within FUT, which is one of the most popular mode we have in the game, where you manage your teams and you can customize everything. So with that, we provide hundreds of customizable and unique uniforms that we'll design with teams and influencers and whoever that is. So over the last 5 years, we've gotten 5 to 10 of these slots that are dedicated to, okay, go do this with a soundtrack artist or somebody who's been or who's going to be. And it's been incredible. The first year we did it, Zad designed one, and out of over 100 jerseys that year, his was the most popular jersey and the most played with jersey in the game. And within a month that the game was out, or maybe 2 weeks, it had been played with over 35 million matches played with that. And then you fast forward to like a few years later when we put a band like Jungle, and Jungle was on the soundtrack. And then we had Jungle design a jersey, and that jersey went in the game as well. Within a month, 750,000 people owned that jersey in the game, with 15 million matches being played with that jersey for a band that definitely did not sell 250,000 records. So they started to get this additional brand, you know, affiliation and connection there with our user that was beyond the music, yet is bringing that to the artist, which is really exciting. And that belongs, right? I'm not stopping the game. I'm not doing that, but it's like, hey, there is a fit here. There's a need. People like customizable, custom shit. Let's give them some options and bring music into it this way. And that's, that's the shit that we really like doing.
Yeah. I think, Rafi, to your point, like that, if you can contextualize it, your FIFA example, if that was a kickoff event, it's not interrupting the game, but it's contextual to the game because music is so, so much part of FIFA that all makes sense. I think the other thing to note, going back to Steve's, point in the opening, these are not shipped products, right? So unlike a game that's shipped or a TV show, you do the music for a TV show, music for a movie, and it's done. That the nice thing about the platforms is that they're in real time. So if you're looking to get placement for a track and you're talking to your, sort of creative partners, potentially you could reach out on a Monday and have something live on a Wednesday. So that kind of makes the business maybe a little bit more dynamic and alive, right? Where a lot of the ones that there's a huge amount of thought that goes into the aesthetics and the sound of the game, and then the game is made, and then the game is shipped, and the game is played, which is amazing. But I think where it's evolving now, it can be more of a real-time interaction of placements, into all these different games that are happening in the metaverse or happening on platforms in real time. So that seems exciting as a evolution.
By the way, to everybody here who's attending, I just want to reiterate, I used to teach a class for years at Belmont University in Nashville, and I would ask every student on day one who wants to be a music supervisor, and almost all the hands went up. And then I would ask them, this is 10 years ago, what is your definition of a music supervisor? And I think most people would say the same things. Oh, I really know music, and I'm going to find some really cool songs to put under this scene. And that's not being naive, and that's not being, ignorant to what, a music supervisor does, or the skill set and the craft of a music supervisor. But I try to challenge everyone, saying, wait till you see what the future brings. Wait till you see how this evolves. Wait till you see what the definition of a music supervisor is going to continually become. And as we're having this discussion with the Guild of Music Supervisors, this is music supervision. And this is where it is. Can you imagine where it's going? It's a craft, it's a skill, it takes vision, it takes a really large set of skills, because we're not just talking about, sure, we license a song and it ends up in a game. Sure, we, cast the right composer and we produce that score. But there's so much more, not just in our space, but I think to the very definition of what this craft is. So I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir to most people here, but hopefully this discussion, and I'm saying this now and not at the end on purpose, because I'm hoping to just, get in your head momentarily to realize this is music supervision. We're not, working for an advertising agency. We're not working, on one film and it ends. This is literally 24/7 evolving. And as John said, we'll work on something on Monday and it's up on Tuesday. We'll work on, a game and we're constantly through live updates. We're working on the game for years. How are we going to create score in the future and add to the score from a project we worked on 3 years ago, but we're constantly recording new music? How are we going to add new songs every week, every month, every day, whatever that looks like in the future, so there isn't the fatigue, as Brandon alluded to before, from somebody hearing the same song over and over, but they're still playing the game for 3 years. So we have to constantly understand the tone, we have to understand the audience, and we have to understand the technology and the technological possibilities, because by the time you start a project, with the growth of technology the way it is, we could have new technologies we're evolving within that we didn't even have when we began. So it's kind of awesome, and it's kind of challenging, and you're learning every day. And I've been saying this for years. Anybody who considers themselves an expert at it means they used to know how to do it. Because you have to be in our world and every world, in my opinion. You have to learn every day. You have to wake up every day and assume you don't know anything about it. Because by the time you get to the office, there's a whole different world waiting for you. And you really have to understand the person. And I used to say the kid, but from the the presentation I just momentarily put up at the beginning, you can clearly see it's not just 16-year-old kids. It's people who are 60. It's people who are 16. It's men. It's women. It's people that are 5. It's people that are black or white. I mean, there is no boundaries to who gamers are. They're everyone. And I frankly also, I think from a value perspective and from the responsibility that we have in ensuring that there's equality in the world, I think we have to realize we also have that responsibility to make sure that we understand our audience is multi-dimensional. And we have to make sure that characters in the game, music in the game, everything represents who gamers are, and they are everybody.
Yeah.
The idea of some punk rock kid sitting in his bedroom in 1992, raging, that's gone. So I'm just pointing that out, that as you're listening to this discussion, we're not talking about brands. We're not talking about, we're sitting there picking an artist about brand. We're talking about music supervision in the year 2020 going forward. So some numbers to think about. We're talking about where we're going, where we're evolving. Let's talk about, COVID and the effect, on our business. In April alone, players racked up a combined 3.2 billion in-game hours. Let me repeat that. In April alone, players racked up a combined 3.2 billion in-game hours. Gamers also, they're already spending 39% more during COVID than prior, and we expect them to spend about 21% more in a post-COVID world. So let's talk about this cultural shift. Is it a cultural shift? How does our role as music supervisors fit into this going forward? Open to everyone. Take that question or evolve that question how you see it.
Yeah, go ahead, Brandon.
Go ahead first, John.
No, I was just say you mentioned the 3 billion. So I think we're now on a monthly basis at 3 billion hours alone on Roblox, and I think moving forward, I've been sparking ideas. It would be fun to have Joel or someone maybe do a little video course for our community, right? Because of those 3 billion hours, probably 99.9% or whatever, 99.8% is not professionally supervised. So I think, having for these young people, Tyron, I think, is a music teacher and was saying in the chat that they need help, right? In terms of what is a music supervisor. These kids would love to learn. They know roughly, a lot of them want to be game designers or test games or whatever. So I think we would be open to having some kind of sort of education bridge for this community as they need to learn of those 3 billion hours of play. What should they be doing differently as the top creators of the games to make it more exciting and visceral and kind of learn the craft. So it should be exciting. And the other point to note is the definition of games. I usually start off my calls by saying, you got Red Dead, Call of Duty, etc. over here. And then you maybe got like Candy Crush, over here. And a lot of the experiences on Roblox, they're really interactive experiences. But there's not that notion of play to win. So they're very loosely defined as games. They're more interactive experiences. And I think the notion is they're becoming hyper-social. So Steve mentioned a lot of the kids are playing together, 35% or whatever. So for us, it's like 95%. So basically everyone plays with someone, and usually groups of 2, 3, 4, or 5. So it's hyper-social, it's hyper-casual. You don't really need to win. You're kind of hanging out. So it is more akin to, as you go to places you would go in high school to hang out in the mall, at a Hot Topic or whatever, hang out in that coffee shop, and there's music in those environments. They're kind of going to these environments, on the platform to hang out where music is a part of that as well. So yeah, it seems to be, in terms of music supervision in 2020, you're going to have a whole bunch more guild members, hopefully, moving forward. Like if you can convert all these kids and explain to them, the art of supervision, they'd love to learn. And in terms of like COVID, we're all like, how do we do business remotely? Steve and I were talking before. These kids have been building, experiences for tens of millions of kids without ever even meeting. And they all chat on Discord. Some of them never even seen each other. And the designer is in London, the music person is in LA, and someone else is in Singapore. And they bring all this creativity to life. So I think, yeah, you got a whole bunch more supervisors, music supervisor coming online, already are online.
John, I'm gonna jump in. It's not my panel, but I think you said my name, so I'll jump in. That this is exactly why I was so excited about this panel, is because this is really where it's all being formed. This is like the lava coming into the water. This is, we don't know exactly what it means to be a music supervisor in games, and you guys are the ones who are defining it. And what the different roles will play, and what roles music plays into these interactive, kind of ever-changing kind of things. Like Steve said, you could have a game that you've been working on for an entire year, and it's out there, and it just keeps changing. And so the rules are still being written. So it's super exciting. So we're watching y'all, and we'll keep playing catch up.
Yeah, well, no, that's great. And again, seriously, we should chat afterwards. We'd love to get. We have a big education, aspect of the platform. So we'd love to get a little course or unit on music supervision, and we do an annual event, get you on and talk to the kids. They don't even realize they know what they're doing. They're just doing it innately because they feel they've got to put music in, but then probably don't know it's the craft that they're part of.
Digital natives, that's what we call them, right?
Yep.
In the chat, I do thank you, Katie, for saying GMS, we need shirts, quote, this is music supervision. It's fantastic.
I love hearing how you guys are focusing on the education side of it. I'm waiting for you to launch whatever game it is. And if one exists, please let me know which one, where these kids actually have to log their homework and their reading logs and their math scores and all of that in order to unlock Roblox. And because it's like, if every time I'm checking my child, I'm like, can you just give this the time that you give your house building game, right? It's just like, it's insane. But it's awesome that you're going into, because that is what your world is. Your gamers aren't, you can probably have the passive experience of going in and hanging out and having the community aspect, but your gamers are builders, and it's amazing to see like what these kids really do bring to life, and bringing that music component into that. I'm thrilled for you. And that's the stuff that we to Steve's point, like music supervision, and I think somebody was even asking here, like, what is music supervision? That's something that's so hard at times for me to even pinpoint. I went to school for marketing and advertising, and sort of music supervision was something that felt completely like accidental. And I'm like, wait a minute, I can actually do this for a living. So it was never even something that I knew was there as a career. But I think today more than ever, beyond obviously the music knowledge and the connections and the relationships, it's the understanding of that this ever evolving business. A lot of times on the corporate side of things, I see a lot of ideas, and this is where we succeed a lot, that get stopped because they can't come to an agreement or figure out the licensing component or the business side of it. And I think in the world that we live in now for music supervision, as much as you know music, you got to understand how to make that shit happen and get everybody aligned and sell your fish and go cook it up, right? And so that to me is something that I think at times gets overlooked, because it's to me probably one of my greatest tools, like to do what I need to.
Well, we also need to, you're so right, Rafi, by the way, and thank you for bringing that up. I think, and I'm not, listen, some of my greatest friends are lawyers, but the truth is that, there's an adversity to risk. And this whole business is about risk. This whole business is about taking chances. So rather than just say no, we need to surround ourselves with people that can figure out with us how to get to how. Because there's a lot of blockades along the way. You're right. There's a lot. And some of them work, in the music business. Some of them work for, our attorneys and stuff. But the idea is you have to figure out a way to get there, because it's going to happen. Whether we get there or not, someone's going to figure out how to get there. So we need to make sure that we don't get stuck and complacent with where we are now. We have to always be thinking where we're going to be. And listen, John wouldn't even be here representing who he's representing and who he works for if it wasn't that. We didn't even imagine what the place that John works for a couple of years ago. We didn't even imagine it. And look at the billions and billions of people that participate every hour. So it takes bold thinking. Let me just bring this back to the music for a second. So everybody, we've all acknowledged here that everybody here is responsible for some pretty high profile cultural real estate. Is your approach to music supervision, music placement, is it driven by content, data, or instinct?
If you're not directing that to anyone, I'll jump in. I think it's definitely.
I'm directing it to everybody, anybody and everybody. Here.
For me, it's a combination of all three. I mean, quite frankly, instinct does play a big role, right? But you know, your marketing and business people are going to want to see some data behind some certain things, and you might want to, you know, be paying attention to the growth on the charts or what have you. So it's definitely a combo of probably a nice, evenly mixed combination of all three of those.
Yeah, I think you know, Steve and I talked on another panel about that, like the responsibility that we will have, you know, with the platforms and the eyeballs, or the ears rather, that we're programming to. So I think from my perspective, it partly, we have some real estate on the platform, which is like our real estate. So when the kids are shopping, or Rafi, your kids are shopping for maybe stuff to put on their avatar, and that's currently a silent experience. So there are some areas in theory that we could program, and we can have weekly music and break tracks. So that I think would be, yeah, instinct, especially if it's new. We can do the hits, and that's more predictable. But I think the most exciting thing is, you know, I used to be a DJ a long time ago. It's like turning someone, you know, onto their new favorite track, the one they can't stop listening to, can't get it out of their head, and it adds that extra dimension to their life. They wake up in the morning, they go running to it, whatever it is. So and then we have the other dimension, which is sort of empowering, you know, this whole community of like mini curators. So maybe it's like radio, you've got all your national radio guys, and then you're at the central office and you can influence some nationally, and then you've got these little local market or local game side. So from my perspective, I'm looking to again, like, educate them as much as possible, give them music. So we're looking to license more music into the game, not into the game, but onto the platform that can be used by all the game makers, so the quality can get up. And then, you know, we want to get out their way and use their instinct and passion where they know their demo. If they're programming to, you know, young girls in Japan, you know, and they got the big game, they know young girl Japanese demo better than anyone else. So let them go for it. So I think it's empowering people to have the tools and the music to do and program to the area that they know best. And then from a macro perspective, it's I think hopefully introducing new music, you know, to people that can become something they haven't necessarily heard, just as opposed to replaying things that are already, you know, popular on the radio.
So this all goes back right to the fabric of who we are as human beings, right? Because each one of us, I know each one of you, and I'm sure 156 people on this chat, this Zoom presentation, all feel the same. When we first turned somebody on to a band or to a song when we were young, the feeling we got, and that never left us. So despite all that we're involved with, that feeling of turning somebody on and introducing somebody to something that will change their life is still important to us, and frankly as important to us now as it was when we first heard, you know, when that happened to us, probably when we were 15 or 12 or something like that. And I know Rafi and I feel that way every single day. We hear something and we're giddy. We're like two 13-year-olds, and we jump up and down when we hear something new. And I have to remind myself that I'm not, well, I don't have to remind myself I am 13, but in here, you know.
Oh, but that's why we do, right? And I think the beauty of it is that, you know, particularly in how we program in our world and the various games and in-game and trailer and whatnot, they call out for different things. So in-game, I feel like we have this incredible freedom to really turn on that discovery fact and go for the instinct, the love and whatnot, and don't have to necessarily like to show the data. It's interesting at times. I always say like marketing is a little bit more soul-sucking because you fall in love with something and then I use the data to then have to sell it. And I always say that data ends up being like as subjective and also as creative as times, you know, having to pick a song, because I'll figure out what is it that they care about. And then I'll find the right points within whatever data is available to me to paint the picture that they're then going to understand and see it in my way. So I do a lot of times will dig up some data to kind of reinforce and sell a creative idea that I would not have available to me from a data perspective before, and maybe not be able to speak the same language. So I do lean on that at times.
Yeah, that's a good point. It sometimes feels like a sales job. Once you have some great ideas, you gotta sell them through. You gotta sell them through.
You do, and when you and as we're talking about, as you guys are talking about, you know, if there's an artist that you fall in love with and there's no data to sell, it becomes a tough hill to climb. But it's where the instinct and the passion, I think that word is overused, but I think it's appropriate here. You know, you have to figure out a way to sell it internally. It's not that, just for those of you that wonder, it's not that we have to sell it at times like selling a song for a scene to a director. It's really about, because it is a real team, and I think the impact of a music supervisor in this space is pretty significant. I mean, most of our partners on teams, producers, executive producers, development directors, once you've built projects with them for a long enough time, I think they really give you the real estate or work on the real estate with you. But I think a lot of the marketing stuff is really, there's a lot of selling to do. And I think you need to know how to do that quite well. We just got a couple minutes here before we take a caller. We're going to take a call. We're going to go to take a call. I can do this. We're going to take a call. Before we take a question or two, but let's just talk briefly, just lightly here about the last 8 months. What's been 8-9 months and the challenges. What are some of the challenges? What are some of the professional challenges you've had to face in the last 8-9 months? Or personal challenges, if they're not professional challenges? I think we can just lightly chat about that for a minute.
Well, I think for me, it's been mixed. You know, of course, I miss seeing everybody at the office, and then there's part of me that actually likes working from home. But man, yeah, it's been interesting. Just backing up kind of to your, just call it the stats that you put out, or that you spat out earlier. The 21% more in a post-COVID world will be playing games. I think some of the challenges have I'm not going to call them challenges right now. I think it's been amazing how, at least in our company, how we've been able to come together and still put out some amazing products while you have your entire development studios working from home, and you have everyone doing this in a remote way. Like it's no joke to put out a game of the caliber of quality that we're doing, and to be able to pull it off has been pretty impressive. You know, we in March, right when the world shut down, we put out a free-to-play game, Call of Duty Warzone, and it was circumstantial, clearly, because we've been working on it for years that it came out when it did. But man, we had 75 million unique users in 10 days. It was overwhelming success. So seeing things like that have been pretty impressive, and where our company's business what kind of business we've done over the past 9 months has been very impressive to pull off the way we've had to pull it off. I'm sure you guys all have your own similar experience.
Yeah.
It is. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Rafi.
No, I was going to say it's interesting to see how the industry as a whole came through and overcame, in a way, the challenge, right? And I think 2020 as a whole was that year where you sort of had to look at something and be like, okay, not that, now what, right? And sort of figure out that plan B, and something that you realize you can't have a plan and you got to be on your toes and keep going. And it's incredible to see that products still came out and these campaigns are still coming to life. And it was interesting because I think we as the music department had a really big challenge put forth at one point, where it's 2 weeks before FIFA is, we're announcing soundtracks, and usually when we would be doing our world launch event in London, where we've booked bands in the past, and we've done like some major, activations around it. And we have the team sitting there and just being like, man, like, what do we do to celebrate FIFA on this day? And it's almost like as if a joke, right? Somebody is like, well, how about like, can you put on a festival and maybe we can get 21 bands for FIFA 21? And 24 hours later, you have 50 artists lined up, from, Diplo to Dua Lipa to Anita to Little Mosey to Glass Animals. That makes me cry every time I watch it. Like to Tame Impala, like who then got, Interscope mad at us because they canceled their radio like promo day to go and lock down some stadium in Australia and shoot like this performance for FIFA to then launch on this day. So it was really amazing to see like the power of like everything that we had built as, not just the company, but as a team who's been together for so long, and what FIFA has built. And how these artists, like within then 10 days, they're coming back with like, here's my performance. And October 1st comes and there's 22 hours of music on YouTube with their things going live, at the times in which we scheduled. And we're like, oh my God, this happened in 2 weeks. So it was really amazing to kind of look at this year and be able to obviously look at all the shit that has happened. But when you stop and sort of look at how you faced it, I've been so proud of like everything we've done and where we are, because we've learned so much, we've evolved so much, we've been able to get these, like I said, like some things where at times maybe you would get people to be like, oh, we're not ready, or that's not that important. Now it's like, well, music is, right? Or these concerts are happening, and all these things were sort of like coming to surface. So that was really exciting. Like the challenge was there, but I think there's no growth without challenge either, right? And that was probably the best part of this year. It's like,
that's the key word, right? This the last couple of months, 8 months, has really created. If we approached it correctly, which I believe we have collectively here, it's created a massive bunch of growth opportunities for us. I can tell you, for me, I had 2/3 of the score for Star Wars Squadrons recorded with about 100-piece orchestra, and then along came March, and how in God's name was I going to finish the score? So it took me 2.5, 3 months, and I built a recording studio, and we recorded the last third of the score, one musician at a time. It was tedious as hell. The reviews came out, and the reviews are talking about the music and how spectacular it is, and nobody's talking about how 1/3 of the music sounds worse than the other 2/3. I mean, it's been spectacular reviews, and everything we're recording now, I've got several recording sessions happening in the next month or two. I've had 4 or 5 since for Apex and trailers, and for, like I said, Apex game scores and mobile games, and we're doing it one musician at a time in the studio, and we're keeping musicians working. They're just, it takes a little bit of a longer time. I mean, I'm not ready yet to put anybody's health at risk their health and put 40 people, playing horns or 25 people singing in a room together. I'm not going to take that responsibility, and I hope nobody would, but I want to keep musicians working. So we built a solution for it, and that solution's going to, we're going to keep going. I think we're going to move to some questions here, and I'm just going to call some people out. I have some questions, and if we could just unmute. I'm going to start with Lucy McGinn from Northern Ireland. Lucy, if you could jump on here and say hi and ask us your question, if you're there.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Hi, Lucy.
Hello. Thank you for a great panel. I was just wondering, how important is symbolism in game and music? Can you hear me?
Yeah. Could you be a little more specific when you say symbolism, so everybody gets a better idea as to what that means?
Just in relation to what's actually happening in the game. Does the music need to reflect that directly, or does it just depend on the game itself?
It's a good question. I'll start this off. I think certainly it has to, let's talk about score for a second. And then we can talk about song placement. And I hope this answers your question. Someone answers your question. With interactive entertainment as opposed to linear entertainment, there's not a beginning, a middle, and an end. So you have to, and also music is not created in post. So you're not creating and writing music for a composer to picture. You're creating music based on scenarios, on possibilities. And so I think the musical imagination can go much further. There's ways that technologically music needs to be delivered. So there's millions of possibilities on how to hear a score against picture. Now, as for song placement, I think personally it's about creating an emotional environment. I don't think that, at least for us, rarely does music necessarily match picture. If it does, it's pretty rare. I think it's about creating a mood. Listen, you're just like film, just like TV. The music is responsible, in my opinion, and many people's opinion, for the majority of the emotional interaction of what you're getting out of it, the feeling you're getting out of it. I mean, I saw a trailer that we did today for a game that's coming out in a couple of years, and it just scared the living crap out of me. And if you dissect it and take the music out, it just doesn't go there. So I don't know if that directly answers your question, and I don't know if maybe Rafi or Brandon or John, you want to take a shot at that. But I don't know if the music, lyrically, for us, lyric is critically important, but lyric, I don't want to match what's going on in the scene.
We're not literal. We try not to be literal, right? Even in marketing, like the message or the lyric may have a bigger play or want to get something across, the finish line for you. But like you said, I think the programming of the music in the games, the purpose there is to enhance the experience. So you're not just going to hear something about, hey, I'm driving this car up the street, right? It might be about a mood in a different place and a different time, but it fits and belongs to the same feeling that you might feel when you're driving a car down the street. When it comes to some of our sports titles, the way in which we approach the programming of it, while they have their personalities and might lean into certain genres, which is hard because now genres are getting to be even more mixed in. So I don't like to talk genres as much, but they will, when it comes to our sports titles, we try to point to the future, right? So it's become about that discovery thing. So it's less about, again, hey, here is, let's kick the ball around, but it becomes a song that's associated with one of those sports because they have a sonic identity that's been developing over years already.
Great. I'm going to ask, I love this person's name, Kinneret from Denmark. Are you there? And would you be able to ask your question for the group? Might be late in Denmark. Well, it was late in Northern Ireland, so it's only an hour later in Denmark. All right. How are we going to do this? How do we get somebody else? I think we probably have time for one more question. Do you guys who are running the panel from the guild, can you assist us in picking someone with a question? Or did the guild folks leave?
They've gone to Denmark.
We have one from Annalicia.
Sorry?
It's like we have one from Annalicia.
Oh, great. Wonderful. Hi, Annalicia.
I'll go ahead and try to unmute you, Annalicia.
That's good, yeah.
I'll paraphrase your question. While we do that, I'm curious to know the different timelines for projects, both for ongoing online games and games that ship a final version. At what point does the music team come in?
So for us, I can just tell you sort of for instance we'll focus on Call of Duty because it's one of our major titles. For us, the entire process, the entire development process is about a 3-year cycle. We actually have multiple studios that are on rotation so that we're able to make annual releases. As far as when we come in to start working on the music. Probably about 18 months in advance is when we start making the decisions on who we're going to hire to compose, and try and work through that part of the process. And we probably start getting into actual music creation probably 14, 15 months out, I would say, is our typical development schedule. And then for your online games question, for something like Warzone, we're putting out 6 seasons a year to go along to accompany that. So you can just assume that that's going to be a constantly updated piece of the equation. Hope that answers your question.
Kinneret, who was in Denmark, just put a note up here saying they couldn't unmute. Can you guys unmute them?
Yeah, sorry about that. You should be good to go now, Kinneret.
Yeah, I'm here. If you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Awesome.
Hi.
Hi, and thank you for this amazing panel. It's great to be able to ask some questions. So we are in this situation in Denmark that we're really few of us who work with supervising, music supervising, and we work. So there's mostly commercials and films and stuff like that. There's actually nobody working with music supervision in the gaming industry, which is kind of crazy because there's like a big hole in the market and everything, especially for the music industry. So usually they outsource everything for other countries to help them, and then they find music from other states and stuff like that. So I would like to try maybe to establish some music supervision in Denmark for the gaming industry. But then there is this entire question about agreements and contracts and stuff like that. How are they? So it's a big question. So you can just try to answer as well as you would like and can. How does, if you know anything about like filming and commercial industry for music supervision, how do they? How is it different, like for agreements in the industry of gaming? Like what should we remember in the agreements that are different from commercials and film in music supervision? Do you understand my question?
Yes. Anybody want to take a shot at that?
Sure, to an extent. I mean, if your question is about sort of the difference between agreements, there's not much difference between because they're all going to be seek agreements, whether it's for a trailer or for a film or for a TV show or for a video game. We put out a lot of game trailers already, so the as far as the agreements go, they're going to be pretty similar. It's just there to cover off on all the requested terms that you need at the end of the day. To the first part of your question about not having that industry represented in Denmark, I don't know. I think the difference is I don't know how many game developers are in Denmark, and that's really going to be the reason behind that. We happen to have Activision's headquartered here in Los Angeles. We have a lot of our studios that develop the games here in Los Angeles as well. EA's not headquartered here in LA, but they have their music team here in LA, where a lot of the music industry is. Well, with the exception of Steve, who's on the other side of the country where the music industry is. Does that answer your question? I'm not totally sure.
Well, yeah. So I'm closer, at least. That it's pretty similar, as long as it's like a moving picture. For industries like films, commercials, whatever, a lot of other things, and then gaming for agreements, at least. yeah, we don't have that many companies that work with gaming, but we have a few that are pretty big. Yeah, so I was just wondering whether the agreements were different. Is there something you need to remember as a music supervisor that that are really something you need to remember when
Yeah, I
you're
don't think there's anything specific to call it on something that you should know that's going to be different in the gaming world versus the advertising or what have you world. Yeah.
In its majority, unless you were being commissioned to do something as a work for hire, you were still looking at a master and sync license, whether that's going in game or whether that's a trailer that you were working on. So like basically speaking, that is the same, master and sync.
Yeah. And Kinry, I'd encourage you as the world is becoming again flatter. So our game developers are all around the world. So maybe you can reach out to some Roblox developers and do something remotely from Denmark, and build your new cottage industry for platforms. So and I want to do a request as well, like in terms of if music discovery is at our core, maybe as people, I'm always jonesing. I think the 100 and we've got left 127 left. I'm open for playlists. If anyone's got some good ones, I want to come away with some good music after the panel, right? That's the reason for being.
Thank you so much.
No, thank you. And thank you to everyone here. We're going to wrap it up. Thank you for everyone. Hopefully this helped to redefine what some people's idea of music supervision was. And you've taken away a little bit more than you knew before about the interactive entertainment industry and how music and music supervision is so critically important, and how it's all about the gamer, it's all about the player, it's all about that person sitting on their couch or holding their mobile phone somewhere in the world. That's the first and foremost thing we think of. I believe that we think about that person before we think about the producer, before we think about a director. I think we think about that person and the emotional experience they're going to have. So thank you, John. Thank you, Rafi. Thank you, Brandon. Thank you, Joel. Thank you, everyone from the Guild. Is a great organization. As Joel said, we've been involved from day one, and it's really important to us. And thank you so much for being here, everyone. Be safe, please, and let's hope we resolve this election here fast, because it's driving me nuts.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to say one quick note. Thank you guys for coming in, and it really, we appreciate, you guys giving us all the insights on the gaming world and the growth and where the gaming world is headed and all the new frontiers. I want to encourage everyone who is not a guild member or friend of the guild to sign up. We'll put a link in the chat for you there, and you guys can kind of check out our website and join based on your different field of study or music supervisor level, or if you're a songwriter, signing up for the Friends of the Guild would apply to you. So thank you again to everybody and the panelists for taking the time today, and stay safe, and hopefully the election results will resolve soon. So all the links are in the chat right there, so take it.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, guys.